because it's time for Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, is the People's Champ, Tim Cack.
Yeah, baby.
And Tim, I just want to say, for the record, it's Furiosa, not Furiosa.
That's, oh, dude, I was about to say that. I can't read Furiosa without thinking of Hermione Granger. I've been thinking that the whole time. Furiosa. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It's Furiosa. It's like, yes, this is a silly name. This is a silly name. People should know that by now that we will reference. This is in all. Everyone who's seen this movie must have thought of that, right? There's no way they didn't.
They have to have. It's exactly like when the movie Nope came out and all the reviews were just in a word. Yup.
Exactly. It was just groupthink at its best, I think. Furiosa.
Yeah, Furiosa.
Kevin, what do you think of Furiosa?
Tim, here's my one sentence take. Furiosa is the movie equivalent of that scene in Civil War when War Machine's suit loses power. It's something really cool, trapped inside a big metal prison that keeps it from flying.
That's a pretty good review, I think.
What do you think? What's yours? What do you got?
I think this movie is absolute trash. I'm actively right now going to actively discourage anyone from seeing it. Don't give them your money. Wait till it's on Netflix or something. Maybe they make money off of that. But like, don't go to the theater. Don't support it. I mean, this is absolute garbage. This is like Obi-Wan Kenobi bad, in my opinion.
Wow. Oh, so you've ramped up because we saw this on Saturday night. We were all disappointed with this. We saw it with Spencer and Lauren. 0 out of 4 of us enjoyed this movie.
I could have left at any time. Honestly, I would have been fine. This is you'd like to think that when somebody is making a movie at some point during the process, there is a vision or like a song in the heart that like just has to come out. And there's a story. You'd think at some point an idea is driving the car. But in this scenario, it's very clearly a cash grab. They saw Fury Road do well and they were like, OK, how can we make more money? We don't have any original ideas. We'll use a character that we've already seen. We'll throw Chris Hemsworth in there, and then we'll just show everything that we already saw in Fury Road, but it'll be shittier and worse.
So
enjoy.
This is
enjoy.
fascinating.
And they just throw it on the floor for us to fight over. Like, fuck them. I mean, this movie pisses me off. It's fucking trash. Nothing new or even interesting happens in this movie. It's such bullshit. I mean, I want to get into every brutal detail of how awful this movie is, including that they start off with chapter titles, which is some of the hackiest bullshit. I mean, that's what Zack Snyder did to make it feel like it was worthwhile to do the Snyder Cut. Like, that's a fucking lousy hack trick to make you think that this is a film we're watching. Somebody saw chapter 1 and was like, oh, this is going to get Oscar buzz. Like, fuck off.
Oh my God.
Fuck off.
It's a bad move.
Shit. This is
it's
goddamn horse shit, dude. Fucking shit. And I don't even care about Mad Max. You know, Fury Road, awesome movie. I mean, I'm way more invested in Star Wars. Meant a lot more to me in my life. But damn it, we just watched Fury Road and we just talked about how awesome it was. We talked about how beautiful it was. We talked about how exciting it was. And then they made this piece of shit and they had the balls to make it 28 minutes longer than a movie that people have argued about as one of the best action movies ever. And they had the goddamn gall to make it 20. They thought they had 28 more minutes than this. And you know what? This movie even ended with scenes from Fury Road. It went right up to Fury Road and they showed scenes from Fury Road. And I watched them and I said, oh, yeah, that's what a good movie looks like. The tiny clips. They did just a bunch of TikToks, random cutscenes from Fury Road. And those were all a million times better than any of the shit we saw in this movie. This is awful. And I'm in fear. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, like critics and audience are both saying 90%. And I'm losing my goddamn mind. I'm at an island by myself with my good taste. And everyone else is out on this boat of ignorance, just floating around an ocean of shit. And I feel like I'm losing my mind, Kevin. I could have walked out of there immediately. First 15 minutes, You got me. It was cool. It was exciting. I'm like, this could be something new, maybe original, maybe an idea we haven't seen before, even though it's a character we know and don't really need to see more about. But then it rolls into just a set. It rolls up to the place that Fury Road starts, and it's like, great. In that moment, my heart sinks. We're not getting anything new. This is all the same shit. It's going to look worse. It's going to be worse. It's all the same characters. Nipple guy's still rubbing his nipples, so that's great. Glad we got to see that. And just not a goddamn new thing, Kevin. Not a goddamn new thing. We get there, and then they're like, cool, want to check out a new place? How about Guntown? The place that we've talked about the entire first movie. You know what it looks like? It's a fucking sandlot. They didn't even build a goddamn set for Guntown. They built one for Oil Town or Gas Town or whatever it was. It's just like fucking miserable shit. And Chris Hemsworth, for whatever reason, is smart and they can't manage stuff. They're just talking about the same shit that we already know from the first movie, and it sucks. And then, Kevin, the whole thing builds up to a great war. There's the 40-day war in the desert, and we're like, cool, finally, I'm going to see a goddamn thing that holds my interest. And they say, no, you do not get to see that. You don't get a fucking second of it. All of a sudden, it's all over. Every single thing that's happened in this movie doesn't fucking matter because it's just Anya Taylor-Joy chasing Chris Hemsworth in the desert, which is like what they could have done immediately at the beginning of the movie. Why did you waste 2 hours of my time just to build up to the two of them face to face in the desert? Oh shit, he's got plums growing out of his balls or whatever it is. Wow, that's hardcore. Awesome. Great to know. People are like, oh, what did Furiosa do to him? I don't know. It's fucking Charlize Theron bald driving a truck. This is a fucking way. Anya Taylor-Joy, is anything bad going to happen to her? No, not a goddamn thing. And we know it the whole time. Oh yeah, but then is she going to lose her arm? Yes, she's going to lose her goddamn arm. You know how I know that? Because I watched fucking Fury Road and she didn't have an arm in it. What a fucking... I'm peeking like crazy over here, Kev.
There were parts of it that I liked.
Name one. Name a goddamn part. I mean...
I liked the opening. I liked chapter 1. I completely agree with you that the use of chapter titles was a horrible move. That was awful. I didn't need most of what we got here. I think this is an early shoe-in for Too Longest. It sounds like you may disagree with that simply on the grounds that you don't think that there's anything redeemable. I think you can still pull 90 minutes out of this that would be significantly better than what we got.
This is about 2 hours and 28 minutes too long.
So you're in on nothing. You're completely out on every single thing that we saw in this.
This is like capitalism at its finest. Like, you're paying more for a ticket than you did to see Fury Road, and you're getting less, and you're going to fucking like it. You know, you're going to rent, you're not going to own a goddamn thing, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to thank us for it. Fuck that. You're fucking ignorant if you love this movie. I will say that right now. Don't talk to me about anything. We're not friends. I don't want to have this conversation. I do. You know what? I'll yell at you wherever we are. I don't know. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I really do. It's very nice. But I
like and subscribe if you're out there.
Please like and subscribe. We need it. I just have so much hate in my heart for what they are doing. Like, this is so obviously to me an idealist, joyless experiment. It adds nothing to the world. It's two great actors that I enjoy. They're both trying things. There is no value being created here. We're not seeing anything new. The one thing we're seeing new is guys on gliders, you know, flying around the
Sure.
car.
Yeah.
And that's
cool
like
addition.
kind of neat. I don't know if it's worth, you know, $28 to see it in IMAX neat, but it held my interest for a brief second while they were on a run to God knows what. I mean, they're just schlepping back and forth between the same three towns. There's no urgency. Nothing matters. I mean, I want to go like bit by bit in this and just like explain how shitty this thing is, like all the way through. I mean, we got to get into specifics. I mean, it's crap. This whole thing is crap, Kevin.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think when you lose the urgency that first movie had, you start to see the seams a lot more. I think one of the first things that happens is you realize that the entire world is commuting at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. Now I feel like whatever. What do you mean? They're commuting? Yeah, I mean, they're just driving
back and forth. The whole thing is they're just ferrying shit between these 3 cities that exist on all of Australia now.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's all the world there is. There's nothing else out there, you know. They found these guys drove for a day and found grass, and the rest of their company can't even come up with a single idea of where they could have gone. Like, no one has a single idea of where this green stuff does. It's like, why don't you send out like 50 guys, send them 50 different directions and see? Because someone brought back a plum. You know, you don't just get plums out of sand. You know, you don't just rub 2 rocks together and a plum falls out. Like, just look, use your head and your eyes and your ears, the same things that you're torturing us with as an audience. Go out there as a character and fucking swivel your head on that fucking shitty sandy neck you got. Well, I don't know. It's just everything about this is stupid. Everything about this sucks.
I haven't seen you this burn out since Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's go through it. Let's start off. You want to burn through this? Let's do let's start from the beginning. So I think it sounds like the part that you liked the most, which is also probably the part that I like the most, is chapter 1, the sequence with her mom, that whole exchange. It was pretty cool. I did think it was too long. I do think that there's trims, but this whole movie desperately needed the strong hand of an editor. Somebody needs to go through and just shave this thing down, because there is absolutely none of that same press for time that you had in the first movie.
I agree. I mean, honestly, the thing I liked about this movie and what got my hopes up, right away, they're doing this thing. She has a sister I've never heard of. Are we going to see anything with the sister? No, we don't. We're not going to see the sister. Don't worry about the sister. She's in a grassy place. Are we going to explore the grassy place? No, don't worry about it. It's not important. There's a bunch of bikers there. And she's like, tells her sister to hide. No part of her is like, let's get help. Let's like take these guys on. Instead, she sneaks down there and tries to cut their motorcycles up, which is fine. But it's also like I'm like, oh, she's caught for sure. And then she blows a whistle. Kevin, I was Googling how far away a whistle can travel.
Sure.
And the consensus is like 1 to 2 miles, you know, like a train whistle on a good day is like 5 miles. So, 2 miles, if everyone's walking, 40 minutes away tops, I guess, if you're on horseback, like 10 minutes tops, like this is a very reasonable distance, I think, for, send your sister running, have her blow the whistle when she's out of earshot, like you obviously need more than yourself to take this down, but they don't. They immediately take this gamble. Her idea of escaping is climbing just straight up a wall that like is very visible to everybody. It's like, it's immediately just, it's stupid. But then they throw her over a motorcycle and they take off and her mom starts chasing her. And I loved this. I was optimistic that this is what the movie was going to be, was them like chasing these guys through the desert.
Yeah, this was sick. Her mom with the sniper rifle. Oh, that was very cool.
The sniper rifle. Awesome. Chris Hemsworth, his wife is in it. What's her face?
Yeah. Elsa Pataki.
Yes, she's in it. That's cool. I like seeing her. She's fun. She snipes some people and then she decides to go back for some reason, because I guess this isn't that important to them. And then the motorcycle breaks and they're doing these things where she's like chasing these guys. She snipes one. They fall off the motorcycle or the motorcycle breaks and then they start moving parts around. And so she catches up to them and then takes the parts off their broken bikes to fix her bike to keep going. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is like a fun, original idea. I want to see this. And then eventually it gets to Chris Hemsworth, and that's even cool.
What did you think of him overall, real quick, in this movie?
I think he's fun. I think the world around him is inconsistent and doesn't make sense. I liked him in this. I couldn't really tell. I was kind of watching it thinking that he's a little smarter than your average bear, like that's why he's at the top and a leader. He's coming up with all of these ideas to trick people. And then even when he tries to win people over, he's preaching socialism. Like, we'll all get stuff, we'll all share, we'll all, get along equally. And he has this crew of people that follows him, that have, like, fervently supports him. So I think that there's something there that's working. He has some sort of a leadership ability, but then he has his own town in Gastown, and somehow everything falls apart. But like, we don't know why. They're missing something. Somehow they're reproducing, even though it's all guys. It's like they're like, we have more people than ever. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then he's like this old haggard guy, and they're like screaming at him, and it's like, what changed? What is this? And then he amassed power again. 1 minute he's like getting overthrown. The next he's like more powerful than ever and taking over another town. And then immediately he's not. And then Anya Taylor-Joy's putting a gun to the back of his head in the desert. Like, it's just kind of all over the place. And I think I was shocked when Furiosa was immediately ready to leave him for, what's his face, Joe, Immortal Joe. Yeah. Because I'm looking at them and like, this is a ragtag group of freaks. Like, he's in some weird like armor thing. I don't know if he's showing off like why he's in this plastic suit with abs. They're real weird. They're talking about like breeding with her and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, I would rather go with you than Chris Hemsworth, who killed my mom. Wow. Yeah, but he's also been treating me pretty darn well this whole time. It felt like that was his best possible option.
I don't think that she wanted to go. She didn't have a choice in the matter, which was probably honestly my biggest beef.
She vocalized it. She vocalized it. She didn't want to go with Chris Hemsworth anymore. She chose Immortal Joe, which seems weird. I mean, I guess it turns out the whole driving force for her is to kill Chris Hemsworth because he ordered other people to kill her mom. And so that, I guess, is enough of fuel to get her through the entire. That's what the whole point of the movie is, because that's what it all boils down to at the end, is her getting revenge against this guy, even though there's something more complicated about their relationship than that. But they just ignore it. She'd rather go with Immortal Joe. She'd rather be bred as one of his wives than hang out with Chris Hemsworth, where he treats her well. And well, I don't know. She could have been like a word person or something, and she doesn't.
Maybe she just reads the room and she's thinking that she can kind of like, I guess, jockey for power differently in the Immortal Joe set than she can in the Chris Hemsworth set. Was his name Dementis? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe she's just Dementis, like making like taking a calculated risk that she'll have like more opportunity there versus she's literally carried around in a cage in the Dementis world. So
that's true. And then Immortal Joe puts her in a vault. So,
right.
I guess it's one devil for another.
Yeah.
She is able to get out of it because he's got one of his freak sons is like trying to assault her basically. And she tricks him and gets away, which is cool. And then they're looking for her. Like, she's a really valuable asset because she is a young lady. And that's really important to Immortal Joe. And then she runs around, she leaves, she's like working there. And then she starts working on the truck, which is cool. And then what's his face finds out, Jack something finds out that she's a woman, and everyone's cool with it. She's just like a woman now, and she's growing her hair out, and she's like hanging out with Immortal Joe. And at no point during this is Immortal Joe like, I think I should wife this girl up. Like, she looks kind of like the girl that escaped. He is basically herding up every young, like, attractive woman he can find for his wives. And it's like, unless you drive a truck good, then you don't have to do that, which is crazy. I mean, I feel like he's, when she first shows up and tries to run away, Immortal Joe, she should have just talked to Immortal Joe. She should have been like, I know you want me for like wife breeding and stuff, but like, I want to drive the truck. And he'd be like, oh, I wish you'd said something earlier. I would love to get you behind the wheel of this thing.
No,
and there's no ramifications for this at all. Like, 1 second she is hunted, and the next second she's in front of him talking to him, and it doesn't make a difference. There's no conflict. There's no nothing. Things just happen in this.
That is a strange hole, because you can kind of infer that her safety and her ability to exist outside of the Immortal Joe like wife pool is because she had protection from Praetorian Jack, who is one of the drivers. And it seems like the drivers have this real like venerated status. You know, it seems like for some reason they're like the generals in this road war that's been going on. And Immortan Joe and the other people, the people eater or the man eater or whatever the fuck everybody's names are, it sounds like they have this respect for the drivers. But by the same token, you're right. There's absolutely no way this guy wouldn't be able to connect the dots that she had escaped earlier. It's odd. It's a weird hole because these guys are like the worst guys possible. Like, yeah, they don't really have redeeming qualities at all. They're going to do the worst thing they possibly can because they're monsters.
They're awful. Would he be okay if one of his wives came to him and said, I want to work on the trucks? No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't put up with that.
Definitely not.
He'd say, you have a job. That's what you're for. And yet Furiosa can leave, come back, and there's no conflict about it. You know, it's also like Anya Taylor-Joy, very attractive lady. She's gorgeous. She stands out in this, I think, as like a beautiful person in like a crowds of people covered in dirt and stuff, you know, and at no point is he like, I'd like to hit that. Like, this is a creep. This guy's a creep. You're telling me he wouldn't just go after one of these drivers just to like, oh, now I'll have a baby that drives good. Like, it's so stupid. It's literally there are no consequences to her actions. And there are so many things like this that don't make any sense. I do want your opinion on this, though, because
hit me.
This is a little different. But the beginning of the movie, mom is captured. Mom is tortured. And they do a weird thing in this that is like kind of a recurring theme throughout, which is alluding to stuff and not like talking the talk and not walking the walk, kind of, where like they end up crucifying her mom, which I think is either on the nose or like just I don't know what. It seems weird. It seems you're telling me society collapsed. They worship cars, but they've like rediscovered like crucifying people. Like, sure, they could. But for a movie to do that, it's like it's loaded imagery. It just seems like it's an interesting choice, especially because they're doing all this stuff. It looks like they're doing something to like her stomach or like abusing her or something. And they're like cutting around it and making it look horrible. And then we zoom out and it's two guys with spears stabbing her in the stomach. And like, that's it. So like, what were you hiding from us if you're just going to show her getting stabbed in the stomach? I mean, it's Christ. I mean, it's Jesus Christ. It's him on a cross and the spear is piercing his side. And they're doing that with the mom, but they're alluding to some other, you know, like they're gutting her or something. And they're not doing that, but they're like trying to make it look cool and they don't show anything. And then they do this again with the motorcycles where they're like, badass scene. We have these motorcycles. They're all tied to a different leg of this person. And everyone goes at once and rips the guy apart. In the first movie, we saw Immortal Joe's face get ripped off. And then in this movie, they're like, no limbs, a cloud of smoke. So it's a bad CGI cloud of smoke. You can't do a bad CGI, like cartoonish him ripping apart or like blood or something. You literally like cover over it. Which again, I just feel like don't bother. Like, don't bother with these things if you don't have like the cojones to follow through, you know, like I don't need the implication that they are mutilating the mother, especially if that didn't happen. I don't need it.
I feel the opposite. I don't need to see it. So that's one of my things with like Evil Dead, where I'm not a gore guy at all. And, you know, I don't need a close up on the spear stabbing into the mom in order to know, like, yeah, this is not good. This is a violent act. I don't need to be like close up on the act. I think
that's not what discretion. They were doing. They were like close to her, like cutting her or something. And then it ends with a shot, like a wide shot of two guys stabbing her with spears, which is like distance. You know, so they're standing farther away from her, stabbing her. So like, we don't know what they were doing before, but they were cutting around it to make it look like it was bad. And then I don't know. But I mean, like the motorcycle's ripping that guy apart. You don't feel the need to like see that at all?
Nah, because I mean, the theater of the mind, that's going to be more extreme and horrifying anyway. I do think that's just like a director discretion choice. I don't know how much of that. I mean, they did it for pretty much all the violence in this. I don't know how much of it is driven by.
At one point you were like, is this PG-13?
Yeah. But But I mean, even when they showed Immortan Joe's face getting ripped off in the first movie, it wasn't especially... It happened for a brief second. Like, it was very, very fast. And then when they came back, we didn't like see him hanging there with no face. Frankly, the SNL Scooby-Doo sketch is more gory than what we got in the first movie for Fury Road. So I do think I think that's consistent with what they've been doing. I wonder
maybe people got shot in the head. We had like heads exploding and stuff. His face got ripped off. Head,
but it was never that bloody. Even in the shot in the end when Furiosa shoots Dementis in the head, there's no spray of blood on the ground. He just falls forward.
Right.
I wonder the extent to which that is driven by the fact that, based on the chapter titles and the successes of the first movie, they probably thought they were making an Oscar contender here. So if it was super gory, maybe that would have hurt its chances. And I do think that not having the extreme gore opens you up to a larger audience.
It just feels insincere to me. It just feels fake. It's like you could cut away and to someone's reaction, but no, you show us the motorcycles driving away and a big cloud of smoke. It looks like just CGI'd smoke. Mm-hmm. Like you are showing us your cover up of this, which again, I think is just another flaw in this movie is like, this movie does not look good. I don't think it's the first movie we were talking about how beautiful it is. Like there's gorgeous horizons, and even the way that the motorcycles ride and the sand gets kicked up on the wheels, like while they're doing this like crazy action stuff, it's beautiful. It like visually is incredibly impressive. And in this movie, they have like guys just falling off their motorcycles for no reason.
Oh my God, that was wild.
Just like dirt places. If there's action, we're probably going to watch it through a telescope. So it's going to be tiny CGI guys fighting. That's uninteresting to me. I mean, I've heard people be like, in a vacuum, this is a good movie, but this is not in a vacuum. Also, anything in a vacuum is good. If you hate Pringles, but the only thing in the vacuum is Pringles, you're going to be like, I don't know, these Pringles, not too bad. It's literally the only thing that exists in my reality. So I deal with it. But in this, it's like you are intentionally following up a piece of work that was very good and had a certain standard of excellence. Mm-hmm. And you're following it up with something that's worse. It is worse. In every capacity, this movie is worse. And I can't imagine somebody watching that. You can't remove this from the context of the fact that it's a sequel. You can't. In my mind, you can't separate the two. And I think that's really my biggest gripe with this is like, sure, in a vacuum, if we don't know what any of these characters are, maybe I have a different feeling about this. But I do know all these characters. I have seen all of this before.
Right.
I've lived in this world already. I've experienced all of these people. I've seen the old guy rub his nipples. Like, I'm not going to be as shook by that as possible. I mean, you can't remove it at all.
I think that's the thing, dude, is that all of the things that were run back from the first movie were pretty much pointless. There's no reason that most of these things couldn't have been done with different characters. The advantage that doing it with different characters gives you is that you don't know that character's fate. It's like you said at the beginning of this pod, you know what's going to happen to Furiosa. We know that she loses an arm. This movie at its worst runs into the Solo problem, where the movie Solo is really charming at points. But for the rest of the movie, it's just running down every single detail we have ever heard about Han Solo's life. And at the end of it, there's no more room for any other Solo movies because we've seen it all. We don't need to see him meeting Chewbacca and doing the Kessel Run in the same movie. Why on earth would we need that in the same movie? Leave yourself some room. You might not want to make another Solo movie now. What about 15 years down the road when you're still trying to mine this IP? Because there's nothing else that exists anymore. We don't get new IP. They do the same thing here. The only thing they could potentially do is like dive into that 40-day war as its own movie. But then they run into the same problem they had here, where Furiosa can only progress so far in this movie because she doesn't get her resolution until Fury Road. So she can only build up to the frustration point that she starts Fury Road with. And can't get that catharsis. I know there's a giant argument between Anya Taylor-Joy and George Miller where Anya Taylor-Joy really wanted the character to scream at one point because she was looking at this as a movie and wanted her character to people to have this moment where she expresses this frustration. And I guess the perspective from George Miller was that he was thinking that it would rob the scream in Fury Road, which is supposed to be the payoff of this character. But if your payoff doesn't happen in another movie, and this entire movie is framed around a protagonist, that's a problem. So if we split off the 40-day war into its own movie, then we double down on that problem even further, because now her emotional arc can't be anything past when she gets the replacement arm to when she goes to hunt down Dementus. Like, it's just, I cannot believe how hard they fucked up the potential with this. There's an interview where George Miller was talking about how he views Furiosa as a Dirty Harry or like a Man with No Name or like Clint Eastwood character that could keep coming back in all these different movies, or could be a character that is this film icon that's passed down and multiple different actors could play her over time. No, I think that's a really cool idea. I don't think it works anymore because of this movie, unless they just decide to pretty much retcon it. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy did a great job with the 40 minutes of this movie she was actually in. But it's insane to me that they decided to run this thing down to its bones instead of giving themselves a little bit more room to work with. Also, it kind of digs into the thing we talked about in the Wolverine Origins pod. We don't need to see the origin of an action hero at all. To a certain extent. Nope. Would you ever want to watch John Wick's first job? Hell no. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch Bruce Willis learning to be a cop. I don't want to see that at all. I want to see them when they're already John Wick's first job for sure. Oh my God.
I mean, honestly, that's a terrible example because I just love John Wick and I know they would do a good job. They put out 4 movies. Each single one has gotten better. If they somehow do like a grittier, like lower level thing, I think they could pull it off in some way, you know, if they're going to do this project, maybe. But also they've had terrible success with like anything out of John Wick killing people, you know. So you're right. You're definitely right. I got enticed by it. I fell for it. I fell for the trick. But we both know that would not be a good move.
The whole thing would be people making jokes like, you know, you keep up this rate and someday they're going to call you the Baba Yaga. Like it just all these like inside franchise joke shit. It'd be awful. And I wish we could have just seen a snapshot, just another adventure that Furiosa went on. Like give us the flash of the first part as backstory and then just let her cook for the rest of this movie and let her cook with characters we haven't seen before so that we don't know what fucking happens.
I think if it's the kind of thing where this character is being passed down through the mantle and like all this stuff, like, then maybe she can't be the main character. Maybe she can't be the driving force in this. And maybe she is a ship passing through these other stories in the wasteland, which, by the way, you already have a character who does that, Mad Max. So I'm not sure we need this other thing. To your point, too, about like how watered down this is. I think one of the reasons why they put all the CGI smoke over this guy getting ripped apart by the motorcycles is a big moment in this movie is Furiosa losing her arm, which is something we all know is coming. But they literally just show her arm just hanging there. Like, if we locked Furiosa up, we come back, it's just an arm.
How did you do that?
I'm sure if we'd watched people getting ripped apart before that, I can see logically how that would like lower the value of the. I mean, by that point, I was so disengaged, it doesn't matter. And there's literally no logical reason behind that scene at all. She is literally locked up by her hurt arm. She is locked to a car. Chris Hemsworth sits on the car, and then his guys ride their motorcycles in a circle around the car, like a tight circle, like everyone's wheel to wheel going around this thing. Everyone can see her and that she is locked up. And then we see time pass. The sun sets. Chris Hemsworth walks around and she's gone. This is literally impossible. This cannot be done. It makes no logical sense. It doesn't matter. And you're like, well, she doesn't have an arm. What's she going to do? The whole time we've seen her working on cars. That's cool. She knows how to use cars. But somehow then she is able to, in a couple of days, build herself a prosthetic arm, which is technology that we don't even have today. And yet somehow she's figured that out from a car in like 2 days. So there's no logical leap to me for like, oh, she's good at cars to prosthetic arm. How does she use it? How does she There's no way to use it.
Does anybody else have something like that?
No one else has that. No one else has it. They have like
Wow.
weird breathing things, but nobody has like an entire limb replaced with something, which you'd think you would see more of.
You know what's sick though?
All you need is one guy with it.
You got to admit this was sick. You got to admit this part was sick. When she pulls to rev up the engine on it, like it's a lawnmower or something, that was sick. You got to give it that.
And then they were just bolt cutters. I was like, oh shit, she's going to like cut this stuff off of him like a saw or something. And it's just, she starts the gas up for bolt cutters, which you don't need gas for. They just sell bolt cutters that, you know, just a little bit of elbow grease you need.
Just
so even
leverage.
that,
Yeah.
I'm like, they're
Just good
diminishing
leverage.
returns. I was like, is she going to do like the jaws of life or something? No, she literally just has bolt cut. I mean, that you're right. I thought that was cool. And immediately they undercut it. It's after they return to whatever that big place is that Immortal Joe runs. It's over. There is nothing good after that. I mean, there's even like this weird stuff with like they ram an 18-wheeler into the gates at Guntown and it doesn't knock the gate down. And then Chris Hemsworth rams into it twice with a monster truck and the entire gate falls over.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking? What are we talking? The movie's full of this stuff where it's just like, oh, it didn't work then, but now it works because we need it to plot wise. And then I lost my shit at this then people in motorcycles are driving over the gate following Chris Hemsworth. And one of the guys just falls over. And then kind of after that, they have more people falling over and stuff like, oh, they can't keep up with Chris Hemsworth. But come on. I mean, it looked like an accident to me. I was so embarrassed for them. Like it looked like they don't know what they're doing. And one of the actors messed up and they forgot to cut it out of the movie. That's what it looked like to me.
A lot of people fell off bikes in this movie. A lot. That one really freaked me out. We both popped. We were like the only people in the theater that popped at that. I thought the person that fell off the bike got run over. I looked it up. I can't find any evidence of like anybody mentioning that. It might have been a near miss, but it looked like the person that fell off the bike on the gate got run over by someone behind them. But there's another one where in the same chase scene, the bikes are trying to climb a mountain at the same time as Chris Hemsworth's monster truck. And it's the bad angle. They can't do it. So like these guys are falling off their bikes. Just crazy.
That makes some sense, but this one did not.
The only thing I liked after they returned to Immortan Joe's facility is I did like Chris Hemsworth's speech before he died, but I thought there shouldn't have been 2 or 3 speeches. It should have been one speech. Pick one of them because they were all good. Just pick one, cut the other ones. Discretion. This movie needed that. Tim, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's no clear message. This movie sucks. This is absolute shit. It's bad. I love that. You know, it's a good thing when they start CGIing cars in to do things that cars can do. A Jeep can drive up a hill. You know, you don't need to CGI that. This movie's trash. Don't see it.
Wow. This is a hot one. Listener, what did you think? Let us know. nerdy430@gmail.com. We will read it on the show. I'm very curious what people thought about this one and whether people agree or disagree on it. Hit us up. We'll be back here again next week. Until then, stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Stay nerdy. Bye. That was fun, but I'm also really just angry.